What's up, guys? We are back with another wave, another line really, of Super 7 Ultimates, taking a look at Transformers today. And we're starting with not Optimus Prime, because I just don't want to. I want to take a look at one of the Action Masters from this line, because as a kid, I really got into that stuff. I liked Action Masters, I liked Pretenders, you know, that kind of stuff really did it for me. Sort of the non-traditional Transformer stuff was more my speed. And, well, this guy looks pretty rad, so we're going to take a look at him first. These guys, of course, still come in the, standard-ish Ultimate style packaging, so you got your kind of non-traditional trapezoidal shape. I say this a lot when it comes to the packaging, like every new line kind of makes me think that this is my favorite, but this might actually be my favorite so far because, I mean, this is pure like 80s, 90s kind of crazy colors, metallic foil. It's all of that stuff that really does it for me. So of course we get, we get the slipcover treatment. So you've got BANZAI-TRON kind of foil embossed on the front in green. We've got his name that runs down the spine, and then you've got Decepticon on the back, or on the side rather, and the back gives you a green Decepticon logo. Now of course it's a slipcover, so pop that off, and you've got your figure there in the big window. Again, like I'm saying, all these crazy colors. So this sort of like pink motif. We've got a Decepticon style Transformers logo done up like the Action Master stuff from back in the day, and then the back of the package gives us like a stats readout for BANZAI-TRON with a little schematic drawing and kind of like a power set rating down there as well. So really cool presentation. I really like these packages. I really like the foil backer card in there, the super metallic blue that's really doing it. It makes him pop. So if you for some reason are going to leave him in the box, he's going to look pretty cool. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates BANZAI-TRON Transformers figure. This guy was definitely not on the bingo card when I was wondering what was going to be in Wave 1. Super 7 did, kind of pick and choose some slightly weirder, less normal Transformers, I suppose. So, this guy was, of course, an Action Master, which means, he was essentially just an action figure. And, well, he's an action figure now. So this is, in many ways, just a larger, more modernized in many ways Action Master, which I think is all right. Works pretty well, especially for my tastes, because I did have this figure as a kid. One of the relatively small number of Transformers that I had as a kid. Where he ended up, I will never know. He did not survive with the few that I have left. But I liked this kind of stuff. Pretenders, Action Masters, again, the non-normal ones. So let's see what this guy can do, see how he moves around. If you've got the Ultimates Voltrons, you kind of have a good idea going into these how they work. They are very similar. More similar to the Chrome Voltron than the cartoon one, since they did kind of change that one up a little bit. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit. Can't really look down though because of the beard. You've got rotation. You do have a little bit of bobble side to side, so you can give him a little bit of attitude. Arms are the area where I feel like he is unfortunately more limited than I was expecting. I guess when you see him in person, you'll understand why, but this is as far as his arms go out to the side. That's it. Because of this big brick shoulder armor thing, he doesn't go any further than that. Arms will rotate. You do have a bicep swivel. It's hidden pretty decently. It's actually kind of hard to use at times too, because he still has a rotating elbow. So you've got bicep swivel, and you've got elbow rotation, and then you've got hinge that still works pretty well. These two pieces kind of move just correctly enough to not get in each other's way. We've got hinges, rotation at the wrist, nothing getting in the way, really good range there. The torso does have a crunch, but it's only kind of in name only. It doesn't really do a great deal. It allows him to rear back a little bit, but he can't crunch forward because of the, transforming diaper. And then you've got your rotation there. Legs go out pretty decently. Not the full splits, but close enough probably. They kick forward about that far. They kick backwards just as far. You do have a thigh twist up there. We've got single jointed knees. They don't really shimmy or anything like that just because of the boxy design. And then down at the ankles, you've got decent hinge and a little bit of rocker. There's this big sort of engines, thrusters down there, vents. They're going to get in the way, but there is a little bit of shimmy when it comes to those ankles. It is helpful enough. So he moves Honestly, he moves about as well as I expected him to. I was expecting some hindrances here and there. Just having experience with the Voltrons, I kind of knew how these were going to work going in. So they are certainly more articulated than anything back in the vintage line, but they do have a little bit of limitations, and BANZAI-TRON in particular has a few. The big thing for me is just the shoulders and his inability to go all the way out. I knew what was going to happen at the torso. I wish he could do more, but the arms are, well, the shoulders rather, are the one area where I feel like he should have had a little bit more range at the minimum. Aesthetically, though, I'm pretty happy with this guy. He's kind of, like a neon nightmare in many ways, because this guy is very much a product of the era in which he was created. So a lot of bright, flashy, neon, electric colors on this guy, and they very much pop. So, if you're into flashy robots, this is probably going to be a pretty decent way to kind of scratch that itch, I suppose. There is a decent amount of paint on him. It's not tons. There is a lot of molded plastic here as well, but it's molded in the correct color, so I'm not too beat up by that. I think it looks all right. I do want to say there should be some orange in these thrusters, though. I swear, I don't have my vintage one anymore. I swear that there was like something down here. So, your mileage may vary on that. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. But I think otherwise the sculpt here is really nice. It's very much, again, like a product of the era, late 80s, early 90s kind of stuff. This very much screams that. So he looks sort of like, I always thought he's like a samurai, like a shogun almost in many ways. I always want to think of him and Bludgeon together when it comes to just the overall aesthetic and design elements. And I really like him. I think he looks great. He's going to pop for sure on the shelf. The Decepticon logo here is nicely done. I'm sure it's Tampo work, but it's really clean and crisp and centered. And of course, you've got this shock of metallic silver there as well. These bright greens, oranges, you've even got the yellow underneath and sort of his inner, well, it's what it would be like his stomach almost, because this down here is a separate piece, the yellow belly brick, I suppose, down there. But he looks really good. The armor plating is nicely done. You've got a little bit of sculpt work in there just to break it up. And then, of course, it hits the light and will sort of catch it a little bit. So you've got stuff like the thrusters, all this little greebling, kibble kind of stuff down here. Just little bits and bobs that don't necessarily do anything but break up the sculpt, catch the light, and make him look a little bit cooler. Outside of the fact that these definitely hinder his articulation, they do make him look really beefy, and they just sort of, I don't know, they make him look incredibly rough and very much like he's going to throw down. They just are these big hulking pauldrons that he's wearing, essentially. And you've got the sort of, green backpack back here. You've got his big sort of, Transformer underwear crotch piece right there. And then you've got hits of orange. You've got even little bits of, sculpt and design work inside what would be like sort of like a tubing in here. There's these little squares that are sculpted in. So there's little bits and bobs and things here that really make no sense. It's just all there to catch your eye and be little pieces on this robot guy. But I think he looks pretty cool. Head sculpt is really nicely done. He definitely looks a little bit menacing, a little bit evil. You got that orange mouth, the yellow eyes, and then the green that flares out the side really breaks up against that big field of black, which, again, tons of just stuff up here. So kind of like this crown, and very much like a Shogun-style helmet almost, that I think looks really cool. It's a very different kind of design when it comes to living robots. Now, as far as some size comparisons, let's start with other Super 7 stuff. So we've got Leo, we've got Pinocchio, we've got Voltron. And this, I think, is a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with, because in general, not across the board, and it's not true for everything, Ultimates tend to scale with themselves across the various sublines. This line is not necessarily the same, because BANZAI-TRON is not this tall, this short, however you want to refer to him. He's not this size in comparison to, say, Pinocchio or Leo, or certainly not to Voltron. Voltron's enormous. So he's different. The Transformers are going to kind of be their own little thing, but you can certainly make it work, and I plan to. So we've got those. Let's move Voltron aside, and here's just one more just to hammer it home. Here he is with Lion-O. So he's basically the same size as your average normal Ultimates across the board. The Turtles run a little short. There's some stuff, Bebop, Rocksteady, Snowman, those run a lot bigger. Now, as far as some other stuff, let's move these guys aside, and let's talk about some Transformers from Hasbro and from other places. So here we go with the Studio Series Perceptor. Here's the Legacy Core Class Iguanas, just to give you a couple, current things. Again, I don't have tons and tons of actual Transformers, so you can see what he looks like alongside this stuff. Let's move him aside, and here's another smaller Transformer, but this is not a Hasbro thing. This is the 30MDLX Bumblebee. And then it's handy, so let's just plop this guy down too, what you can see of him anyway. So here is, that's a third party. I do venture out when it comes to Transformers from time to time. So that's a third party, the Banana Force MPL-01 Sharpshooter. It's essentially the Robots in Disguise car robot Optimus. And then let's do a Marvel Legend, just why not? There's a Legend, so there's the Armored Daredevil. And then one more, here's a reaction figure. And I don't actually have any Transformers reaction, so here is the Green Ranger. So you can see how he scales in and out of Ultimates with other stuff, with some other Transformers. If you have any frame of reference for some of this stuff, you'll get an idea of how big he is. But he's essentially a normal-ish 7-inch scale Ultimates figure. Very much par for the course throughout the majority of these lines. Now, as far as accessories goes, BANZAI-TRON gets a few things. He gets a buddy, and when it comes to this guy, he basically has the stuff that the vintage figure had. Optimus in this wave definitely gets the lion's share of all the accessory money, so all the work went into him. I suppose when you think about that, it probably makes the most sense. BANZAI-TRON doesn't come out with nothing, obviously. He just doesn't have a ton. So we do get some hands to start with. We get some fists on him in the box. You get gripping / trigger finger hands here. We get a sort of menacing, gripping, grabbing right hand. And then we get this left hand, which I know there's comic artwork out there of him doing a pose kind of like this sort of two-finger, sort of like a sizing up, squaring up, martial arts posturing kind of a hand. That might be the inspiration for this. I'm not exactly sure. We do get his gun, so it's got like the bayonet on the end, like the knife. He can hold it both ways, so it can be held as a sword, it can be held as a gun. It doesn't have any paint on it, though. I really wish it did. The vintage figure, I don't believe did either, but I don't know if that's truly necessary to go that close to accuracy. I would have loved to have seen some orange or some green highlights on this thing just to make it pop, because the sculpt is definitely there. Like, there's a lot of little stuff in there. It just doesn't have any paint on it. And then we get his buddy. So this is Razor Sharp. And he's supposed to be like a Halloween crab is what he's supposed to be. And he's a weird little thing. In the vintage line, he had, I think he was spring-loaded, or he transformed on his own, I want to say. You did something and he would sort of flip around, and he became a different gun that would attach to this gun. This does actually attach to it, so this peg is keyed, and there's a hole back here. So you can do this. I don't really know why, because he can't hold it, and that's what he would do. He would hold him as a gun. He can't hold this, though. There's this peg here, but he can't hold that either. So I'm not really sure what the reason for this is, and the stock, the handle of the gun goes so far that it sort of makes him off kilter on the ground. So I'm not so sure about that. Could just be, a vintage little Easter egg that they decided to throw in there. But he does look good, though. He doesn't do anything. He certainly doesn't transform. He's got all these little bits and bobs. This is like the barrel that would flip out. It's underneath, but it doesn't go anywhere. None of this stuff moves, or at least it's not moving if it's supposed to. I don't think it's supposed to. So all of this stuff is like painted too, though. So even these legs are painted back here. I thought that would be molded plastic, but there's actual paint on that. But he does look good. This is definitely where some cash went to when it comes to some of those accessory, budgets when it comes to this wave, because this is a big hunk of plastic with a lot of detail that doesn't necessarily do a whole lot for the figure itself. He's an add-on for him as a package. So I think it's pretty cool that they included him. It definitely recreates that whole Action Masters vibe when it comes to this guy, because of course that's what he was, and that's what this guy was part of. I wish he did a little bit more, but at the same time I understand that's, well, there's probably not a lot Super 7's going to be able to do when it comes to doing anything transformation related. So yeah, overall, really happy with this guy. He does have some limitations when it comes to articulation. I really think that's probably the biggest bummer when it comes to this figure, and it's specifically just those shoulders. I wish he could do a little bit more. The torso is exactly what I thought it was going to be. I'm not really surprised that it is limited. Otherwise, he moves very much par for the course with a lot of other Ultimates. So if you're into this line, if you're familiar with him already, you kind of know what to expect with him. It's really a lot about the looks for me and what he represents. I mean, this is literally just an Action Masters figure. How many times have I said Action Masters in this review? This is literally just an Action Masters figure that's been, upscaled and added, given some added articulation. I think he looks fantastic. The paint is nicely done. The colors are super bright and vibrant, and that really draws me in. There's a lot of nostalgia for me with this guy and this particular type of Transformer too. And then, of course, he comes with not a lot of accessories, but a pretty decent spread. I've got some solid hands. I'm really happy that they included Razor Sharp, despite the fact that he doesn't really do a whole lot. It makes him more of a complete package to have him alongside. So yeah, that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Transformers Wave 1 BANZAI-TRON. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.